All praises to the Most High. This is day 5 of Feast of Dedication. What I will be going over is faith, right? I had somebody tell me that they wanted me to go over Daniel 10. I'm going to also go over that as well. I'm going to try to keep it short and sharp as possible. But I'm going to go ahead and start with faith, right? Because without faith, you wouldn't pray. Without faith, you wouldn't fast. Without faith, you wouldn't do the works, right? You wouldn't fast if you didn't have faith that the Most High would receive your fast. And you wouldn't pray if you didn't have faith that the Most High would hear your prayers, as well as the righteous acts of the Lord, right? So I would always like to start with Judges 5 and 11. My favorite scripture to always remind us what should we be striving to do in Judges 5 and 11. It says, they that are delivered from the noise of archers and the places of drawing water, there shall they rehearse the righteous acts of the Lord, even the righteous acts toward the inhabitants of his villages in Israel. Then shall the people of the Lord go down to the gates, right? So we know that Christ, he fasted. We know that he kept the commandments. We know that he loved his people. All right, so I'm going to start with Matthew chapter 17 about faith. I'm going to start with Matthew chapter 17 and verse 20. And Jesus said unto them, because of your unbelief, for verily I say unto you, if ye have faith as a grain of mustard seed, right? Grain of mustard seed is, smaller than a dime. Ye shall say unto this mountain, remove hence to yonder place, and it shall remove, and nothing shall be impossible unto you, right? So of course, that mountain will not be moved. And we see in verse 21, it says, howbeit this kind goeth not out, but by praying and fasting. By praying and fasting, you cannot move your mountains, right? You can have all the faith you want, but by praying and fasting, as well as doing the works, that mountain may not move. Your barriers may not break apart, right? That hurdle that is hard to jump, you might not clear. All right, we're going to also get that in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 6 about faith. Hebrews chapter 11 and verse 6. Never read through 11. So like here, I'm going to go ahead and read all the way to 13. Right, because this is a good precept about faith. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 6. But without faith, it is impossible to please him. Right? For he that cometh to God must believe that he is. Right? Meaning, you're not going to fast without wavering or having a double mindset. Right? You're not going to fast and think, oh, did the Most High, receive my fast? Right? You're not going to give alms to the righteous, and then your bill is about to be need to be paid. You're not going to shake your head and scratch it and be like, oh, the Most High see me give. I give my last. Most High, where you at? With praying, fasting, and do works, you're not going to be a double-minded. It says, for he that cometh to God must believe that he is God, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. All right, verse 7. By faith, Noah, being warned of God of things not seen as yet, moved with fear, prepared an ark to the saving of his house, by the which he condemned the world, and became heir of the righteousness which is by faith. Verse 8, by faith Abraham, when he was called to go out into a place which he should after receive for an inheritance, obeyed, and he went out, not knowing whither he went. By faith he sojourned in the land of promise as in a strange country, dwelling in tabernacles with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. So we got to put ourselves in Noah's shoes. We got to put ourselves in Abraham's shoes, right? Just picture yourself as Noah, and the Most High is, telling you that there's a flood coming, right? And for you to build an ark. Right? A lot of us wouldn't believe that. A lot of us wouldn't have faith, right? A lot of the times through your faith and through your works, through your praying and fasting, your children is going to be saved, right? Not only Noah was saved, but his children were saved, right? His 3 sons and their wives were saved. Same thing with Abraham. It says verse 9, dwelleth in tabernacles with Isaac and Jacob, the hearers with him of the same promise. So a lot of the times, man, you the head of the household, you the man of the household, it's up to you, right? And then you're going to train that along to your seeds, and they're going to be blessed as well, right? They're going to see the good works that you're doing. They're going to see the benefits of having faith, praying, and fasting, and doing the works, and they will do so also. And they will receive the promise as well, Lord's willing. Verse 10, for he looked for a city which had foundations, whose builder and maker is God. Through faith also Sarah, right? This is for our righteous foremothers right here, right? Herself received strength to conceive seed, and was delivered of a child when she was past age, because she judged him faithful who had promised. Therefore sprang there even of one in him as good as dead, so many as the stars of the sky in multitude, and as the sand which is by the seashore, innumerable. These all died in faith, not having received the promises, but having seen them afar off, and were persuaded of them, and embraced them, and confessed that they were strangers and pilgrims on the earth. Right, so it says these all died in faith, not having received the promises, but having seen them afar off. Right? Faith is having hope that the Most High will deliver you, that the Most High will provide for you, and in tough circumstances, in tough situations, right? Even when you can't see it, that is having faith. Having faith is something that you can't see, right? You can't see the kingdom. You can imagine the kingdom, but you have faith through your works, your praying, your fasting, that you're going to get to that kingdom, right? That's the end of Hebrews chapter 11, verse 6 to 13. I'm going to also get all praises, all praises. So we're back here in James 2, another count on faith, right? James chapter 2 and verse 20, and I'm gonna stop at verse 24. Right, this is talking about our righteous forefather Abraham. All right, it says, "But wilt thou know, O vain man, that faith without works is dead." Faith without works is dead, right? We gotta stop singing. Not necessarily stop singing, but we need to stop crossing our fingers and treating the Most High as he is a genie, right? We are his servants. He is God. So therefore, we have to give the offering, and the Most High is going to see if it's acceptable, and then he's going to bless you for your laborers' works. We still have to perform these works. What are the works? Keeping the commandments, right? Being diligent, studying, fasting, praying, meditating, loving your neighbor, loving yourself, examining yourself, keeping your temple holy, right? Verse 21, was not Abraham our father justified by works when he had offered Isaac his son upon the altar? Now that's deep, right? Our righteous forefather Abraham was justified by his works when he offered Isaac, right? He gave that offering. What are we to offer to the Most High? What are we willing to give up, right? That is of this world, by us renewing our minds based off of Romans 12 and 2, right? Let me get that in Romans chapter 12 and verse 2 real quick. Another one of my favorite scriptures. It says, "And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God." So a lot of the things that we've been conformed to this world that is not of the Most High, we love. We can't take it away. We couldn't imagine ourselves without those particular things of the world. We couldn't imagine ourselves letting go of holidays, that your mother and your grandma, that those particular customs that y'all practice, right? We're so attached to it. We can't give up corruptible people, right? That we so-called love. We can't give up that blunt. We can't give up that drunkenness. We can't give up partying on Saturdays. What are we willing to offer to the Most High and give up? Right? It's levels to it. Right? Once you renew your mind and you realize, oh, I have to keep the law. Right? You may give up pork. Right? You may start keeping the Sabbath day holy. Right? You may do a lot of things. But it's levels to, the bigger things that it's harder for us to give up. And we must not be conformed to this world, but change the renewing of our mind from it. All right. I'll go back to James. Chapter 2. Yes, James chapter 2 and verse 21. Was not Abraham our father justified by works when he had offered Isaac his son upon the altar? He offered his only son upon the altar, right? We got to get to the level in that state of mind to where we will be willing to do that. All right, this is the precept that I was going to for what should we be able to give up to prove to the Most High that we love Him. What are we willing to offer? All right. So this was Luke chapter 14 and verse 26, 27, and I'm gonna stop at 33. All right. And it says, if any man come to me and hate not his father and mother and wife and children and brethren and sisters, yea, in his own life also, he cannot be my disciple, right? So we do know that we must love our neighbor. We know that we must honor thy mother and thy father, for your days shall be long. We should self-examine and love ourselves like we love our wives, our significant others. But in verse 26, it says, if any man come to me and hate not either one of those, all of those, in his own life also, he cannot be my disciple. Right? Doesn't necessarily mean hate those people, but in comparison to the Most High, that we must give up those particular people. Right? If we're followers of Christ, if we're being His disciples, right? If we're on His teams, then what are we willing to sacrifice, and what are we willing to give up? Right? We cannot be double-minded in this thing. It should be without a shadow of a doubt that we should be giving up those particular people in things of this world if we love the Most High. It says, or either that or you cannot be His disciple. Let's get the definition on disciple real quick. Right? Disciple, a personal follower of Jesus during His life, especially one of the 12 apostles. Right? So apostles and rulers, so like apostles, followers, right? Down here it says believer, right? Student, learner. The opposite of this is opponent. Are we on the Most High's team in that case? A disciple means you own His teams. So we cannot continue to call ourselves followers of Christ if we're not willing to give up those particular things, right? Let's go back to the scripture. Verse 27. And whosoever doth not bear his cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. For which of you intending to build a tower sitteth not down first and counteth the cost, whether he have sufficient to finish it. Right? So have we sit down and counted the cost, right? To see if we're efficient enough to finish the race, the marathon, so to speak. Right? For the race is not given to the swift, but for the one who endureth forever. Have we sit it down the cost? Have we meditated on these scriptures and see what we inevitably going to have to give up? Things of this world, things that are closest to us, right? Will we be willing to give up our beloved ones, right? Verse 28, for which of you intended to build a tower sitteth not down first and counted the cost, whether he have sufficient to finish it, least happily after he hath laid the foundation and is not able to finish it, all that behold, it began to mock him. Right? So you don't want to be mocked for somebody being a follower of Christ. Right? And then all of a sudden, when things hit the fan, you turn around. You turn your back on Christ. Right? Just like how Peter, right, forsake the Most High 3 times. Right? He went through all that. Just at the end, when it's finally the time to be persecuted, he turned his back on Christ. Right? You don't want to be like Peter. You don't want to be mocked for those particular things. Verse 30, saying this man began to build and was not able to finish. So don't even start this race. Don't even start this marathon if you're not inevitably willing to give up these particular things. Verse 31, or what king going to make war against another king sitteth not down first and consulteth whether he be able with 10,000 to meet him that cometh against him with 20,000. Right? For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world. We are in a spiritual warfare. This is the precept I was saying, Ephesians chapter 6 and verse 12. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers. Not against flesh and blood. We're not wrestling against things that are so carnal, right? We're battling the spiritual demons as well. But against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickednesses and high places. Wherefore take unto you the whole armor of God. So what is the whole armor of God? The whole armor of God will be you meditating on the law daily, staying diligent in this truth, fasting, praying, loving your neighbor, loving yourself, keeping your temple holy, giving alms, right? That is putting on the whole armor of God spiritually. Make sure that you're spiritually inclined, beating down that fleshly intake that wants to devour you, right? That flesh that wants to take over you. Because the flesh is very weak. So we must make sure that we are bounding in the works of the Lord. We want to make sure that we're striving to make sure that our spirit is so strong. Right? It says, wherefore take unto you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand. Stand therefore, having your loins girt about with truth, and having on the breastplate of righteousness, and your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. Above all, taking the shield of faith, wherewith ye shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked. Right? Above all, taking the shield of faith, right? All in all, you do all the works. Why do all the works and not have faith at the end of the day? And with that, I'm gonna go back to chapter, what was it at? Go back to Daniel. Right, we're gonna talk about Daniel real quick, right? And we are kings. Do we not sit down to first consult it whether it be able to finish the battle, to check our minds, to check our spirits, to keep our temple holy, to keep the commandments, to meditate on the law daily, to examine ourselves and love our neighbors? Are we winning in this spiritual warfare, or are we declining into destruction? Those are the particular things that we're going to have to do. Right? Verse 32, or else while the other is yet a great way off, he sendeth an embassage and desireth conditions of peace. So likewise, whosoever he be of you that forsaketh not all that he hath, he cannot be my disciple. All praises. This is still the same video. I'm just making a transition to Daniel 10. Right? I'm just going to be doing this to where you guys can see it as well on your phone, so it can be just as convenient for you. So this is Daniel 10 of the Daniel fast. We just read on a few accounts of, what a fast is, how do our people keep a fast, how you should pray and keep a fast, as well as keep your faith and do the works, right? So I'm going to start with Daniel 10, verse 1. In the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a thing was revealed unto Daniel, whose name was called Belteshazzar. And the thing was true, but the time appointed was long. And he understood the thing and had understanding of the vision. And in those days, I, Daniel, was mourning 3 full weeks. I ate no pleasant bread, neither came flesh
nor wine in my mouth, neither did I anoint myself at all, till 3 full weeks were fulfilled. And in the 20th day of the first month, as I was by the side of the great river which is Hiddekel, then I lifted up mine eyes and looked, and behold, a certain man clothed in linen, whose loins were girded with fine gold and Uphaz. Right? His body also was like the beryl, and his face as the appearance of lightning, and his eyes as lamps of fire, and his arms and his feet like in color to polished brass, and the voice of his words like the voice of a multitude. Right? So far, verse 1 through 6, we know that Daniel had a vision and he had understanding of it. And in those days, he was mourning, right? We did just learn about mourning and weeping as to when people fast. And he restrained his flesh from taking anything that was pleasant to it, right? So no meat, no pleasant bread, no wine. Neither did he anoint himself till 3 full weeks were fulfilled. And then he lifted up his eyes and he saw this a certain man clothed in linen, with loins were girded with fine gold and Uphaz. And his body is the appearance of lightning, and his eyes as lamps of fire. And his arms and his feet like in color, his arms and feet like in color to polished brass. And the voice of his words like the voice of a multitude, right? So this right here is talking about Christ. Yes, Daniel saw Christ, right? Saw the appearance of Christ. I'm gonna prove that by going to the precept of Ezekiel 40 and 3 real quick, right? We'll go to Ezekiel the prophet, chapter 40 and verse 3. So I highlight it. And he brought me thither, and behold, there was a man whose appearance was like the appearance of brass, with a line of flax in his hand and a measuring reed, and he stood in the gate. Right? Let's see, do I continue? I think I have another one in Revelation. Let me get that one in Revelation. I believe it's Revelation 1 and 13. And it says, Revelation 1 and 13, and in the midst of the seven candlesticks, one like unto the Son of Man, clothed with a garment down to the foot, and girt about the paps with a golden girdle. His head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire, and his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. Right? So a lot of people would say that a lot of people would try to hop around this, right? For example, verse 14, they may say his head and his hairs were white like wool. Wool is a texture. Um, but a thing that can be very similar to wool is um, a sheep, so to speak. Sheep have white woolly hair, right? Even wool is a textured and white. Well, white can be, especially in the biblical times, it can be looked upon as woolly being white as well as the texture. And his eyes were a flame of fire, and his feet like unto fine brass, right? So a lot of people would try to hop around this, mostly other races, because it's very hard for them to um, picture a black man being the Messiah, so to speak. Either that or they just have too much pride. And I would also like to get that in First Maccabees 3 and 48, because people are so institutionalized, religionalized, however you would want to put it, by Christianity of how they portray Christ, right? And it says, I'm going to go to verse 48. And laid open the book of the law wherein the heathen had sought to paint the likeness of their images, right? So the heathen, the people of not no color, no melanin, has sought to paint the likeness of their images within the books of the law, right? Because if you look at all the paintings, um the Lord's Supper, everyone's white, prophets is white, everybody is no such thing as color, so to speak, right? So it's so hard for a lot of people to grasp Revelation 1 and 13 and things of that nature. Let me get that in Acts 13 and 1, matter of fact, right? Because we do know Christ was a Jew, right? From the tribe of Judah, right? It says, now there were in the church that was at Antioch certain prophets and teachers, as Barnabas and Simeon, that was called Niger, right? Niger, nigger, negro, just means black. So this is a perfect account on black, right? And Lucius of Cyrene and Manian, which had been brought up with Herod the Tetrarch and Saul. All right, let me also get Salakia. So I'm going to go back to Daniel. Let's go back to Daniel. All right, where did we leave off on? All right, we left off on the appearance of Christ. So Daniel just seen Christ, right? He just did his 3 full weeks of his fulfilling of his fast, of no pleasant wine, bread, meats, and he did not anoint himself at all. So we're going to jump to verse 7, right? And it says, and I, Daniel, alone saw the vision, for the men that were with me saw not the vision, but a great quaking fell upon them, so that they fled to hide themselves, right? Let me get that precept about prophets will be shown the vision, right? Because a lot of prophets was shown visions as well as dreams, right? All these prophets have been shown visions and dreams, except for Moses. Moses was a prophet. Moses is the only one who, had an encounter with the Most High face to face, not shown by visions or dreams, but face to face. I'm gonna get Matthew 13 and 16, right? Prophets being shown the vision or dreams, right? So Matthew chapter 13 and verse 16. And it says, but blessed are your eyes, for they see, and your ears, for they hear. For verily I say unto you, that many prophets and righteous men have desired to see those things which ye see, and have not seen them, and to hear those things which ye hear, and have not heard them. Right? So prophets see visions, and they see dreams. I would like to also get Numbers 12 and 6. Numbers 12 and verse 6. And it says, and he said, hear now my words. If there be a prophet among you, I the Lord will make myself known unto him in a vision, and will speak unto him in a dream. My servant Moses is not so, who is faithful in all mine house. With him will I speak mouth to mouth, even apparently, and not in dark speeches, and the similitude of the Lord shall he behold. Wherefore then were ye not afraid to speak against my servant Moses? And the anger of the Lord was kindled against him, and he departed. Right. So that's a precept on prophets being shown a vision, as we go back to Daniel chapter 10 and verse 7. Right. I'm going to read it again. And Daniel alone saw the vision, for the men that were with me saw not the vision. Right. So everyone is not called. Everyone is not touched and enlightened to be a prophet. Everyone is not given those particular things. Right. but a great quaking fell upon them, right? So something came upon them, whether it was a great quaking, a earthquake, or a filling, so that they fled to hide themselves. Therefore I was left alone and saw this great vision, and there remained no strength in me, for my comeliness was turned in me into corruption, and I retained no strength. Right? Yet heard I the voice of his words, and when I heard the voice of his words, then was I in a deep sleep on my face, and my face toward the ground. Right? Sounded like he passed out. Right? And when I heard the voice of his words, then was I in a deep sleep on my face, and my face toward the ground. Right? So you see a lot of times in movies when they gasp and they see something crazy or they hear something insane, you know, oh, my 15-year-old daughter is pregnant. You know, you may have the daddy that passes out, or, you know, they see something obscure or something out of this world, they may pass out, right? So Daniel, it looks like right here in verse 9 that he passed out, right? Let's continue in verse 10. And behold, an hand touched me, which set me upon my knees and upon the palms of my hands. Let me get that in Judges 13:6. Let me get that in Judges 13:6. Because he heard a voice. It sounds like he was afraid, right? Trembling. He was afraid. Let's get that Judges 13:6. It says, then the woman came and told her husband, saying, a man of God came unto me, and his countenance was like the countenance of an angel of God, very terrible, very terrible. But I asked him not whence he was, neither told me his name. Right? So it says very terrible. So the countenance of the angel of God is not maybe a pleasant thing to look at, but you know, you'll probably be shocked and out of this world and trembling and afraid. You might even pass out like Daniel did, right? So we're going to go back to verse 10 in Daniel 10, verse 10, right? That's where we left off in. And behold, my hand touched me, which set me, and hand touched me, which set me upon my knees and upon the palms of my hands. And he said unto me, O Daniel, a man greatly beloved, understand the words that I speak unto thee, and stand upright, for unto thee am I now sent. And when he had spoken this word unto me, I stood trembling. Right? There you go. Verse 12. Then said he unto me, fear not, Daniel, for from the first day that thou didst set thine heart to understand and to chasten thyself before thy God, thy words were heard, and I am come for thy words. Right? But the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. But lo, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, and I remained there with the kings of Persia. Right? So let's talk about what they mean by that. Right? Verse 12 and verse 13. Then said he unto me, fear not, Daniel, for from the first day that thou didst set thine heart to understand and to chasten thyself before thy God, thy words were heard, and I am come for thy words. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days, right? Which just means 21 days. But lo, Michael, right? We're going to figure out who Michael is. One of the chief princes came to help me, and I remained there with the kings of Persia, right? So we're going to jump to Daniel 12:1 to find out who Michael is, right? Let's jump to verse 1. This is Daniel 12:1. Let me go ahead and highlight for you guys. There we go. At that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, everyone that shall be found written in the book. So Michael does not sound like a man. It says, a great prince. A lot of times in the word, you don't really hear prince when it's referring to man, right? You hear the prince of the air, in which that precept I'm going to bring up later on. Prince of the air is, dating back to Satan. But it says, Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people, right? Which is the 12 tribes of Israel, right? 12 sons of Jacob. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. I'm going to skip down. Everyone that shall be found written in the book. So this one man is going to fight for the children, standing for the children of thy people, right? This just sounds like just a regular man, right? So we're going to find out even more about what that's talking about. And it mentions trouble. It mentions trouble. We're going to get Jeremiah 30:7, right? It mentions something about trouble. 12 sons of Jacob, the 12 tribes of Jacob, trouble. So Jeremiah 30. Bear with me, you guys. Jeremiah 30:7 through 11. And it says, Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. So we just read in Daniel chapter 10. Let me go back. All right, let's remember this. Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. So let's go back to Daniel chapter 10. Salakia. Daniel chapter 12, verse 1. And at the time shall Michael stand up, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people. Right, so we know the children of thy people is coming from the 12 tribes of Jacob. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, everyone that shall be found written in the book. Okay, so we read that enough. Go back to Jeremiah 30:7. It says, Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. For it shall come to pass in that day, said the Lord of hosts, that I will break his yoke from off thy neck, and will burst thy bonds, and strangers shall no more serve themselves of him, but they shall serve the Lord their God, and David their king, whom I will raise up unto them. Therefore fear thou not, O my servant Jacob, said the Lord, neither be dismayed, O Israel, for lo, I will save thee from afar, and thy seed from the land of their captivity. And Jacob shall return, and shall be in rest, and be quiet, and none shall make him afraid. For I am with thee, said the Lord, to save thee, though I make a full end of all nations, whither I have scattered thee. Yet will I not make a full end of thee, but I will correct thee in measure, and will not leave thee altogether unpunished. Right? So the Most High, what we must understand with the Most High, we must understand that the Most High does have people, Slakia. He does have angels that do good deeds, and angels like good, like as far as good deeds, like protect and keep. And he does have angels, what are so-called demons that are scheduled to kill, right? Let me get that in. So Most High, he also kills. It's not a battle between him and Satan, right? I'm trying to figure out where's that scripture. It says I kill. Bear with me. So I kill and I make alive. I'm back, you guys. I just had to find, I skimmed over a little bit. It was Deuteronomy 32 and verse 39. Let me go out like that one. See now that I, even I, am he, and there is no God with me. I kill and I make alive. I wound and I heal. Neither is there any that can deliver out of my hand. Right? So we know that the Most High has rulership over everything. Right? Satan has to get leeway from the Most High to do particular things. Right? Angels go to the commands of the Most High. The moon goes to the commands of the Most High and how He set it. The trees, the seasons, and everything. Right? That's the most point. That's the point of a God, our God, the God of Israel, Yahweh, Yahweh, Yeshua. Right? His name will come to light in these last days, and He will have, right, multiple correct names other than what other people call Him. But He kills and He makes alive. Let's go back to, right, what did we leave off on? Daniel chapter 10. I believe it was 13. Right. So it says, but the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. But lo, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, and I remained there with the kings of Persia. Right. So yeah, once again, verse 13 was talking about Michael. Michael is not a man. Man cannot withstand an angel, right? Man cannot withstand an angel. Right? He's talking about princes, right? Princes and principalities go hand in hand, right? Principalities just mean like a realm, right? Doesn't necessarily mean a mortal man in verse 13. So we got to understand that, right? We got to understand that Michael, he is an angel. He is an angel, right? It is set to protect Jacob during Jacob's trouble. Which we just read in Jeremiah 30 and 7 through 11. That's what Jacob's trouble is, right? So as we continue in verse 14, now I come to make thee understand what shall befall thy people in the latter days, for yet the vision is for many days, right? So said shall befall thy people in the latter days, right? So when Jacob's trouble come in and all hell is about to break loose and things of that nature, that's what he's telling them, for yet the vision is for many days, right? In verse 15, and when he had spoken such words unto me, I set my face toward the ground, and I became dumb. And behold, one like the similitude of the sons of men touched my lips. Then I opened my mouth and spake and said unto him that stood before me, O my Lord, by the vision my sorrows are turned upon me, and I have retained no strength. For how can the servant of this my Lord talk with this my Lord? For as for me, straightway there remain no strength in me, neither is there breath in me. Then there came again and touched me one like the appearance of a man, and he strengthened me, and said, O man, greatly beloved, fear not. Peace be unto thee. Be strong, yea, be strong. And when he had spoken unto me, I was strengthened and said, Let my Lord speak, for thou hast strengthened me. Right? Right. So these princes, once again, just to, give you a reminder, right? These princes are different kingdoms translated. So when we talk about, but the prince of the kingdom of Persia, right? There are princes, different kingdoms being translated, right? I'm going to further explain that the principalities controlling different empires, right? For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities. Let me get that in Ephesians just to prove that. Ephesians chapter 6 and verse 12, right? For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. So we battle against these spirits. Principalities is like a realm, right? It's not so much as carnal, and you dealing with spirits out here against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world. So when we go back to Daniel chapter 10, where they was talking about, right, verse 13, but the prince of the kingdom of Persia, right, the kingdom of Persia, right, so the principalities, the prince of Persia, the kingdom of Persia, right, so we're going to go to the different empires to back that up, which I think is Ecclesiasticus or Sirach, however you want to put it. I believe it's 13 and 8, right? Or 13 and 8. It's like it was Sirach 10 and 8. Sorry about that, you guys. Sirach 10 and 8. Or you can say Ecclesiasticus, right? This is in the Apocrypha. This is 10 and 8. Right? It says, because of unrighteousness, dealings, injuries, and riches got by deceit, the kingdom is translated from one people to another. Right? So you see as the different captivities, right? You had the Syrian captivity, right? In which I believe after the Syrian was the Babylonian, and after Babylonian was the Persian. After the Persian, it was the Greek. And after the Greek, it was the Romans, right? So it says the kingdom is translated from one people to another, right? Let me get that in Ephesians 2 and 2. Ephesians chapter 2 and 2. And it says, where in time past you walked according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air. So according to the course of this world is of Satan, according to the prince of the power of the air. So the prince, if you hear about the prince of the power of the air, that's referring to Satan, the spirit that now worketh in the children of disobedience, right? Among whom also we all had our conversation in times past, in the lust of our flesh, fulfilling the desires of flesh and of the mind, and were by nature the children of wrath, even as others, right? So we see the characteristics of the prince of the air. Anytime we hear about the prince, principalities, that have something to do with, a lot of times that has something to do with the spirit of Satan, right? So it says fulfilling the desires of flesh and of the mind and the lust of our flesh. Conversation in times past and the lust of our flesh, right? So that's what a lot of those things have to do with when it refers to these princes and things of that nature. I'm gonna go to John 12 to cast out the prince of this world, right? To trodden down the prince of this world. Because these different kingdoms and these different principalities have the prince of the air within them, right? They have these beasts in them. This is John 12. Let's go to John 12. John 12 and verse 31. Right? No, now is the judgment of this world. Now shall the prince of this world be cast out. And if I be lifted up from the earth, will draw all men unto me. Right? Supplication unto me, so to speak. Right? So that's another account on, the prince of the air being trodden down. But let you know that the prince, he goes to kingdoms. Right? He has to have a home. He has multiple homes. So the prince does have kingdoms. So, right, we know America is basically in a way kind of like Sodom and Gomorrah, right? Not going to go too in depth about Sodom and Gomorrah, but you can read that in the Old Testament, right? They did a lot of fornication and homosexuality, right? So America here today is, in a way, it's spiritually, Sodom and Gomorrah. And the Most High did cast them down with fire and brimstone. Right? All these kingdoms have a so to speak, a limit. Right? Just because, don't be so blinded by just the life that we live, right? We've been here before. There's multiple kingdoms that has been burnt down. Why is America an exception? Right? America is very wicked. There's a lot of blood that America has shed, as well as other kingdoms as well. But we're only, so to speak, talking about the ones that we live upon. Right? So that's what should we be looking for? We should be looking to stay blameless and see the Most High seek vengeance on this land of all their wickedness that they did, while planting seeds in the likes and mindsets of people who want to serve the Most High and who want to be spotless when He comes down with His sore punishments upon this land. Right? So it says, now is the judgment of this world. Now shall the prince of this world be cast out. Right? So I'm going to also get that account on, let me go ahead and continue with Daniel. Let me go ahead and finish out Daniel real quick. Daniel. And it says, and said, O man greatly beloved, fear not, peace be unto thee. Be strong, yea, be strong. And when he had spoken unto me, I was strengthened and said, let my Lord speak, for thou hast strengthened me. Then said he, knowest thou wherefore I come unto thee? And now will I return to fight with the prince of Persia. And when I am going forth, lo, the prince of Grecia shall come. Right? So we did know, from, let's go ahead and go to Maccabees real quick. First Maccabees 1:1. Right? And it happened after that, Alexander, the son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Shittim, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians, in Medes, that he reigned in his stead, the first over Greece. So let's go back to Daniel 10. Slakia. Daniel 10, verse 20. Then said he, knowest thou wherefore I come unto thee? And now will I return to fight with the prince of Persia, and when I am going forth, lo, the prince of Grecia shall come. But I will show thee that which is noted in the scripture of truth, and there is none that holdeth with me in these things, but Michael your prince. Right? Michael your prince is necessarily fighting for us, right? So the Most High has people, angels on the right side. He have angels on the left side, right? But we know on the count of Michael, right? In verse 13, it says, but the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 1 and 21 days. But lo, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, and I remained there with the kings of Persia, right? So let's get another account on when they mention Michael. I think they mentioned him in verse, I think that's how many times they mention him within this chapter, right? We already had another account on him in which I believe it was Revelation. Yeah, we did have another account on him in Revelation. So let's go ahead and finish this out. But I will show thee that which is noted in the scripture of truth, and there is none that holdeth with me in these things but Michael, your prince, once again. All right.
So when we go back, when we read Daniel 10, the whole Daniel 10, he fasted. It's Daniel's fast. He fasted for 3 weeks, 21 days. No pleasant meat, bread, flesh, wine. Neither did he anoint himself until those 3 weeks were fulfilled. Right? And then he saw the image of Christ. Right? Same as described in Revelation. Same as described in Revelation. It was Revelation 1. Revelations 1 and 13. right, through 15, describes the image of Christ. So as we go back, David 10 says, "Then I lifted up my eyes and looked, and behold, a certain man, clothed in linen, whose loins were girded with fine gold of Uphaz." Right? His arms and his feet like in color to polished brass, and the voice of his words like the voice of a multitude. And Daniel alone saw the vision. So not everyone is chosen to see visions. Not everyone is chosen to see visions and dreams. Right? Some people may have different spirits. Some people may be prophets. Right? Some people may be like Apostle Paul. Right? We all in the betterment of the house of Israel. Israel all had different a different purpose, just like a basketball team, right? You have different positions that will all come together in order to win the game. Now, this is just a quick example of everyone having a different purpose. This is in 1 Chronicles chapter 12 and verse 22. For at that time, day by day, there came to David to help him until it was a great host, like the host of God. And these are the number of the bands that were ready armed to the war, and came to David to Hebron to turn the kingdom of Saul to him according to the word of the Lord. The children of Judah that bear shield and spear were 6,800 and ready armed to the war. Right, but jump down to verse 32, right? And of the children of Issachar, which were men that had understanding of the times to know what Israel ought to do, the heads of them were 200, and all their brethren were at their commandment. Right, of Zebulun, such as went forth to battle, expert in war with all instruments of war, 50,000 which could keep rank. They were not of double heart. Verse 35, and of the Danites, expert in war, 28,600. Right. Verse 37, and on the other side of Jordan of the Reubenites and the Gadites, and of the half tribe of Manasseh, with all manner of instruments of war for battle, 120,000. All these men of war that could keep rank came with a perfect heart to Hebron to make David king over all Israel, and all the rest also of Israel were of one heart to make David king. Right? So we are of all one heart to the Most High God. Right? To keep the commandments, to meditate on the law, to love each other, to examine ourselves, to fast and to pray, and to be patient for the kingdom. Right? Just like in verse 38, all these men of war that could keep rank came with a perfect heart. So we must all have a perfect heart for the betterment of the house of Israel. Right? All of one. Right? To make David king over all Israel, and all the rest also of Israel were of one heart to make David king. Notice that these different tribes from let me go back up from verse 24 to verse 37 of these different tribes, Reubenites, the Gadites, Asher, Danites, Naphtali, Zebulun, Issachar, Ephraim, Manasseh, Benjamin, Simeon, Judah, right? All these different tribes, right, were split up all for the betterment for the house of Israel, right? They were all on one accord, and their heart was perfect. It wasn't double-minded. It wasn't double-hearted. They all was in agreement, right? All on one accord. So we all on one accord as to who the Most High God is, how we should carry ourselves. Although we may have different areas and different positions, right? Maybe placed on the south side, on the north side, on the east side, and on the west side, according to your spirit, right? The south side may be a faithful servants, right? The north side may be the prophets, right? The left side may be people who, according to the times, according to the holy days, right? Even the Levites were as the priesthood. The Levites were ranked as the priesthood. A lot of times the Levites did not go out to fight. Let me get that. Everyone has a purpose, right? The Levites were the only ones that were able and allowed to go into the inner court. Let me get that in Numbers 16 and 10. right? It says, and he hath brought thee near to him, and all thy brethren, the sons of Levi, with thee, and seek ye the priesthood also, right? So Moses and Aaron was of the Levi nation, of the Levi tribe, and that was the priesthood, for which cause both thou. So not everybody might not be able to see visions. Not everybody will be able to break down prophecies just like the other guy, right? But one may have a stronger spirit and faith than the other, right? One may be able to heal. One may be able to break down these parables and these precepts. So everybody has a primary purpose, a primary spirit, right? So it says, and I, Daniel, alone saw the vision. For the men that were with me saw not the vision, when a great quaking fell upon them, so that they fled to hide themselves. Therefore I was left alone and saw the great vision, and there remained no strength in me, for my comeliness was turned in me into corruption, and I retained no strength. I'm going to jump down to verse 11. And he said unto me, O Daniel, a man greatly beloved, understand the words that I speak unto thee, and stand upright. For unto thee am I now sent. And when he had spoken this word unto me, I stood trembling. Then said he unto me, fear not, Daniel, for from the first day that thou didst set thine heart to understand and to chasten thyself before thy God, thy words were heard, and I am come for thy words. So all these books of the law, of the prophecies, of the epistles from the apostles, Revelation, they are all used particularly for us in faith. Right, so these books is all used for us to have faith within the Most High, to meditate daily on, and to spread the word, and to get our house in order. That's one thing all in common that the betterment of the house of Israel does have. To spread the word, to love thy neighbor, to keep the commandments, and to stay diligent in this truth, and to strive to be blameless, and to strive to be perfect as in Christ. So the betterment of the house of Israel, our duty is to, blessed is he that readeth, and they that hear the words of this prophecy, keep those things which are written therein, for the time is at hand. Right, for the time is at hand. Let me get that on meditating. This is Sirach 6 and 37. Sirach 6 and 37. Let thy mind be upon the ordinance of the Lord, and meditate continually in his commandments. He shall establish thine heart, and give thee wisdom at thine own desire. Right, last one I'm going to get in Sirach 14 and 20. Blessed is the man that doth meditate good things of wisdom, and that reasoneth of holy things by his understanding. Right? So we're trying to see a vision. We're trying to understand a vision that the Most High has given us, that has already been set in stone. Right? These particular visions that we might receive, or dreams, is just something that is a precept of what has already been set in stone through these prophecies. Right? Through the understanding of these prophets. Right? You may have a vision, or you may have a dream of something that may happen particularly within your household, right? Not pertaining to the entire house of Israel, but into entirely your household, right? So if you're doing those fasts, if you're doing a Daniel fast, all praises to you. That, you know, whatever you're doing, the Most High is seeking your understanding, right? And he shall bless you with the vision that you're trying to grasp. With that, I would like to say shalom.